to go to confession tonight, and it'll be happening all throughout the event. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker. His name is John, and John joins us as an architectural sales rep, as Father mentioned, with YKKAP America. He has performed his job in many, many places across the world, but he is most excited to be here tonight to speak about what he calls his 4 steps to finding out how to live God's will, and he'll obviously speak a little bit more about that here. But without further ado, please join me in welcoming our speaker.
So I've got a question for you. I've got a question I want you to think about. I want you to think about how you would finish this statement. In my wildest dreams, I never imagined I would... What? If we were in a conversation in the back somewhere, and the conversation, you know when it's going there, and it starts to well up inside you, and there's something that you've done, something you've accomplished, somewhere you've been, somewhere you've traveled to, that allowed you to just, out of your mouth it came, oh my gosh, in my wildest dreams, I never imagined I would... What? Just think about that for a second. For me, in my wildest dreams, I never imagined I would have spoke in 7 different countries at professional conferences or conventions. In my wildest dreams, I never imagined I would write a monthly blog for an industry magazine for the past 6 years. In my wildest dreams, I never imagined I would build a 16-foot crucifix that hangs at Prince of Peace Catholic Church today. Now, I don't tell you these things to impress you, trust me. I tell you these things because when I tell you sort of the rest of the story, kind of where I came from, you'll begin to see and understand how, if it wasn't for God's grace, there's no way I could do any of these things. You see, for me, one of the things I deal with day to day, and it was a little harder when I was younger, I have ADHD. Pretty severe ADHD. Now what that means is, I've got some advantages that people don't have. What that also means is I've got some disadvantages many people don't have. So some of the advantages are, for me, I don't know why, but I can process a lot of intricate information really quickly. I'm in architectural sales, and my job, I deal with a lot of engineers, architects. I mean, kind of nerd out, you know? They can really just get into the minutia of engineering stuff. I can too. I love that stuff. You know, the other part of that is that you're able to think pretty quickly. But another advantage is that I have is I've got a lot of energy. I mean, a ton of energy. My mother told me, not the other day, she said, you know what, when the sun came up, you were up, and it was just like all day long. You never took naps, but when the sun went down, you were out for the night. Ask my wife, she'll tell you that's probably the same way now. Those are a couple of advantages. A couple of disadvantages. Well, for me, one of the disadvantages is that I'm kind of absent-minded. In other words, I lose things, okay? Sunglasses, wallets, watches. It's my 4th wedding ring. Not that I've been through 4 wives, but I lose things. The first one was traumatic. This one, I think my wife and I were running some errands, and we were at Walmart. She paid $19.95 for this ring. That's how much love she has for me. You know, the other disadvantage of having ADHD is I learn very differently than many people. But it has also advantages, too. See, for me, memorizing for the sake of memorization just doesn't make any sense. I just have trouble doing that. It's really hard. For me, I've got to put it in pictures. I think in pictures. I hear you talk to me in pictures, and I communicate in pictures. If there's not a picture or a timeline or a context that makes sense, I'm out. Now, what that means is school was really hard for me. Because where I went to school was a lot of memorization. And school was difficult. I mean, really difficult. When I was in grade school, I was put in classes with remedial kids. I mean, kids that may have been institutionalized, but they tried to mainstream that. By the time I got to middle school, though, I made it to the head of my class. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not that I got smart all of a sudden. You see, when you have ADHD and you're in a class, you have no idea what's going on. Teachers are talking. What do? You act up. You become the class clown. Teacher would say, no, you need to come right up here in front of the class with me. That's where I need you. My mantra through high school, D's get degrees. I got D's and I got my degree and I knew college wasn't for me. I knew, and God blessed me with the passion, the love of building things. I love to build things. I'm in the building business. I've been in the building business one way or another all my life. And the funny thing is, I made it one of my most important jobs was to hide the fact that I don't have a college degree. And I work with these people that are incredibly educated and incredibly talented. And it was almost like I would give these presentations, I still do. I gave one today. Room full of architects and engineers that are, they really are talented, very good. And I got this voice in the back of my mind going, you idiot, they're listening to you. But that's sort of my story, and I get very bored with that story when I say too long, talk about it too long. But here's a question I have for you. What's your story? What's your thing that you're dealing with? What is that impediment? What is that insecurity? What is that one thing or two things that you don't feel like you are blank enough? We all do. We all do. I think God gives us that insecure thing, that thing that bothers us, that makes us feel like we don't measure up. For me, I feel like it's something that God gives to me to teach me humility. I think He does the same thing for you. I think He teaches us all humility through our faults, through our deficiencies. But through those things, I think that's a gift because you realize in dealing with many people that you're not perfect. And guess what? They're not perfect either. And there lies the beauty. So what you want to do is, like many of us do, we have these insecurities, we have these things that we're dealing with, we're trying to get over, and then the self-talk comes in. You know, that self-talk that I'm not blank enough, fill in the blank that is for you. I'm not tall enough, I'm not smart enough. You know, I didn't come from the right family, I don't have the right education, I didn't go to a good enough school, I only graduated high school. That I'm not enough is something you kind of have to overcome. See, in life, I think there are a lot of questions we have. As young people, questions like, who should I marry? Should I marry? What profession should I follow? Where should I live? All those questions are great questions, but they can boil down to one question. That one question is, am I living God's will? And if so, what is it? See, I got a problem with the question in and of itself. You see, because that question in and of itself, it speaks to and kind of gears towards that God's will is this event out there. Like, I'm not living God's will now, no. See, I'm going to go find God's will. You want to know what God's will is for you? I'll tell you, each and every one of you. Right now. This is it. Right now. God's will is not at the end of the rainbow in a pot, you go find it, and then, automatically you just live God's will and it just races upon you. It's not how it works. You're living God's will right now. So here's the question. Are you okay with where you are living God's will? See, that ADHD mind of mine, I could not let it go. Living God's will. What is that? Give me some tactical things. Put it in a picture. Put it in a story. See, I think we all want to live God's will. I think we all want to do that. See, I think there's a couple of paths you can take to living God's will. See, the first path I think that is part of living God's will is, I call it the Carrie Underwood path. You know the country western singer? She sings that song about God's will. Jesus, take the wheel. Right? Many of us, I'm going to go out on a limb and say most all of us, at one time or another, are like, hey, God, this is you. Okay, I'm trying to follow it, but this is all about you. I can't do this. And I'm not sure that's not a bad idea, because You really sometimes need to do that. But a lifelong commitment to Jesus take the wheel, I have nothing here to do. You know, my foot's off the gas, my foot's off the brake, I'm not touching the steering wheel at all. Is that really what you think living God's will is? I don't think it is. I think there's a better way. See, I think you should take an active role in living God's will. I think we all have to take an active will, or an active participant in living God's will. And it just so happens, I have 4 steps that I've come up with. And I've challenged different people because they are so close to our faith. I gave this speech, Texas Men's Conference, a year ago. I had an hour, so I don't have an hour this time. I've got some handouts if you want to see what those 4 steps are, because kind of blow through this quick and it might hurt. So the first step to living God's will is you've got to find your why. Okay? You've got to find your why. What's your why? So your why is that thing that defines who you are, what you stand for, and when people see you, they know, I know his why, I know her why. It's that line in the sand that says, when life's interruptions, when life's temptations, when life's motivations happen, I'm here. I'm not moving, I'm not budging. Now, when we do budge, when we do move, that's where sin kind of comes in play, right? But you got to have a why, you have a starting point. I hope you're thinking, gee, I think I'm going to start my why. I want a why. Let me let you know a little secret. You got a why. Think about where you spent over the past 3 months. Where did you spend your time and money? There's your why. Doing a lot of different things? I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what you should do or shouldn't do, but here's the question. Wherever you spent your time and money the last 3 months, is that okay? If it's not okay, you might want to come up with a why. Many of us, we work for companies, and these companies have these mission statements, right? I think you should have a mission statement. A personal mission statement. I've got one. Here's mine. To use the God-given gift I've been entrusted with to the very best of my abilities, all for the glory of God. That's my mission statement. I'd love to unpack that, but I'll just comment on the last statement. That one is the one that is the rubber meets the road. That's the closer, that's the clincher. When something comes along, I'm not sure, boy, I want to do this or that, and then there's the glory of God. No, glorify me. I want to glorify me, not God. That's where we all are. That's where we all seem to think. So, number 1 is you've got to find your why. Number 2 is you've got to find your talents. Now, when I give this speech to many young people, they all say the same thing. I'm not good at anything. Well, that's probably true. You might not be good at anything. And the ones that are laughing are the ones that know they're not good at anything. No, seriously. If you don't know what you're not good at, that's okay. So, I kind of go through the steps, but I'll start trying to make sense of it. So, what your talents are, finding your talents are the end game. The beginning is finding your interest. You're interested in something. There's something you're daydreaming about. There's something there. I don't know what it is. It might be way off the wall. So if you want to find your talents, think about what you're interested in. There's probably 100 things maybe. So here's what I want you to do. Here's what I challenge you to do. Okay? Now for some of you, you might walk out. You need to get up 30 minutes earlier every day than you get up already. Because you need that me time. Okay? Don't even pick your phone up or log on your computer. No, this is me and God time. Okay? But we're not just going to sit there and me and God. I got work for you to do. Okay? So next thing I want you to do is I want you to, if you don't journal already, you need to be journaling. It's painful, I know. But I can help you along the ways. So go get yourself a journal. Now, I'm not talking about going to Walmart and getting a 79-cent spiral notebook. No. You need to spend as much money as you possibly can. You need to find the most expensive journal you can. This thing needs to be leather bound, big thick, $40, $50. 2 reasons. Seriously. One is you're going to keep that journal forever. And the entries you make in there are going to be incredible. And you're going to wow yourself. You will read your journal and you'll go, I wrote that? I promise you that. The second thing is, you're going to spend that kind of money. I hope you feel so guilty when you don't journal in it. Seriously, I look at life that way. I told Lacey earlier that I wanted to lose weight, so I bought a suit that was 2 sizes too small. That's motivation. So once you find your interest, take 2 months and just make these entries into your journal. Every day if you can. 2 entries, 3 entries. What am I interested? Why am I interested? After 2 months, you'll begin to see some repetitiveness. You'll begin to say, there's a thread that weaves through these things. Now what you do is you take that interest and you develop your talent. Very early on, I loved building things. Part of that is woodworking. I love woodworking. I still do. When I started woodworking, I sucked. I mean, I was really bad. Everything I made either turned into a box or an ashtray. It doesn't make sense, and there's not a market for wooden ashtrays, if you know what I mean. I was so passionate about it, though, I couldn't wait to make the next mistake. And then I learned from that, and then I learned and learned and learned. 30 years later, I made most of the furniture that's in our home. Most of the furniture in my children's homes. And then this crucifix, which blew me away, Prince of Peace, that I've had the honor of making. So when you say, I'm not good at anything, say it with pride. Get that journal. Okay, number 1 is you've got to find your why. Number 2 is you've got to find your talents. Number 3, you've got to dream wild dreams. Okay? Now, let me put a little bow around this. I'm not talking about setting goals. And I'll tell you the difference between setting goals and dreaming wild dreams. But you've got to dream wild dreams. See, because I say this over and over again, and it's so true because it's happened with me. You can't dream wild enough for what God's got planned for you. You can't do it. Because there are a few people in this room that have gray hair like me. And you ask them and they'll go, yeah, that statement is so true. Promise you. You can't dream wild enough. Why I want you to dream is because your mind needs to just go like crazy. Wild dreams. I mean, if you've got a dream that you want to own a vacation home in every season, a summer home, a winter home, a fall home, and a spring home, dream it. Put any dream you have. Take those 2 months. 30 minutes now, right? You're going with your interest. You got 30 minutes in the morning. Now you got your why, and now you're dreaming your wild dreams. See, I'm not talking about goals. See, you know what a goal is? A goal is something that you arbitrarily put limits on because of my abilities. A dream is like, hey, one day I'm going to speak in 7 different countries. Yeah, okay, go sit down. Just go on, because you must be crazy. You're on something. So dream wild dreams. Okay, we need some organization here. So here are the dreams you need to dream. Organize them into 3 columns in your very expensive journal. So the first column is going to be your spiritual dreams, then your professional dreams, your personal dreams, then your professional dreams. Categorize them in that way. And then what you want to do is sort of prioritize them. All your A's, all your B's, all your C's. And then you begin to see some of these things in there. Then what I want you to do, after there's 3 months and those entries in your journal, is you want to ask yourself a question after each of those dreams. Why is this dream so important? Or back to our why statement, aren't we? Why is that dream so important? Let me play this out a little bit. So let's say you had a dream. Don't ask me how I know this. Let's say you had a dream that you wanted to make $1 million. I mean, you know, the love of money is the root of all evil. But you got a dream when I make $1 million. Is that a bad dream? Think about it. Here's the question. Why do you want to make $1 million? We're back to our why statement. Right? So if I want to make $1 million because I got a bonehead brother-in-law who's got a great job and he's always flashing his toys around, his jet skis, his vacations. And just one time I'd love to like pull up in front of his house in a nice Porsche or something and just rub his face all in it and go, see what I got here, pal. See, now all of a sudden, who are we glorifying? Yeah, me. So what if you had a dream that you want to take that $1 million and you wanted to build homes for the underprivileged, feed a family or feed several families, maybe start a tuition, maybe just do something in ministry. Anything that gives glory where? Yes, to God. Okay, so we got our why. We got our talents. We've dreamed some incredible dreams. What's the fourth one? So the fourth step in living God's will is you've got to become detached and indifferent to living God's will. Now that's a lot to unpack. Let me go there first. So I want to be perfectly clear. I'm not talking about being detached and indifferent to your faith. There's even more so. You should be attached. Be detached and indifferent to living God's will. You know, last month it was interesting because I sat way in the back, but the priest opened up and he was talking about the Ignatian Examen. For a long period of time, I really studied that. Read a couple books and went through the Examen. It is incredible if you're interested. The beauty of it is that you reflect on how you acted, what you said, and what you thought twice a day at least. That's the minimum. But the beauty of that is that in the Examen, it talks about being detached and indifferent to where God led you in that day, in that moment, what happened. See, when you are detached and indifferent, you allow God to work His grace. You've got your job to do, okay? You got that expensive journal, you're getting up 30 minutes early, you found your why, you've got your talents, you're working on them, you're dreaming wild dreams, then you set some goals in that direction to accomplish those dreams. Now it's time for you to just let God do His job. I mean, you have your job, He's got His. But you know what? There may be one, maybe two people in this room that like controlling things. Don't ask me how I know. Because we always want to control God's will, right? I mean, it's happened in prayer, I'm sure. Again, don't ask me how I know. You know, we think we're all spiritual and we're just, we're going after this wonderful thing and it just doesn't happen. We're going along this direction. We're going along this path. We set these goals. We're using our talents. We're using our gifts. And all of a sudden, God does it. Or something does it. There's a roadblock. There's a detour. There's a door that closes. And then because we're getting up early 30 minutes, we're in prayer saying, God, wait a minute, I had this goal here, okay? I had this goal. I wanted it. Genie God? You don't know Genie God? Rub the lamp. Genie, here's what I need. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. That's Genie God to me. But that's how we sometimes pray when we have a direction, we have a goal we want to go in, and it doesn't work. And all of a sudden we're like, oh God, really? I mean, if you love me, you'd really grant me this wish. Then we get more mature, right? And then we bring out guilty God. Make God feel guilty in prayer. God, you gave me these gifts. I mean, I don't know. I just, you put this in my heart, and I can't believe you're not giving this to me. But hey, that's how you want to roll? Sure, go ahead. See, when you truly are detached and indifferent to living God's will, your prayer becomes like this. God, I'm going down this road. I'm using my gifts. I'm loving things. I'm moving in a direction that I feel like I'm glorifying you. But if this door closes, let thy will be done, not my will be done. Now you're onto something. Now you're able to become detached and indifferent to God's will in your life. You see, I must admit, I do like quotes. I love the sappy quotes. I love the religious quotes. My daughter sent me a quote, and I just thought, wow, that is so appropriate for this. This quote goes like this. God answers all prayers one of three ways. Yes, not now. I got something bigger planned for you. You see, here's what happens. When you become detached and indifferent, and you're going down the road and you're working on a goal or in a direction, you're using your gifts and you know it and you feel like, oh man, this is so congruent, this is what I'm born for, and all of a sudden this roadblock happens. And then all of a sudden, your prayer's like, God, you got something bigger planned for me, don't you? I just know it, because that's how this works. Or maybe there's another direction you want you to go in. You don't want to go back to the genie God or the guilty God. You know, thinking you're headstrong and hell-bent on this one goal. This is all I want to do is right here, this. God's got some amazing things lined up for you. I've got a friend of mine who said this one time, and I told him I'm plagiarizing this to death, and here goes. The economy of God makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. None. Think about the logic of God's economy. Die first before you can be born again? Give first before you can receive? How about be detached and indifferent in order to live God's will? Now you're onto something. Now you're doing something, I think, great. You're using your talents. You're dreaming the dreams. You're putting the goals together. You're making these things happen as it should be. I challenge you. I absolutely challenge you. Find your why. Find your talents. Dream crazy, wild dreams. Be detached and indifferent to where God leads you. And I don't know, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, you'll be talking to somebody. And that conversation starts to well up inside you. And you sense it, and you almost know that it's going to come. And out of your mouth, you're going to say, in my wildest dreams, you never imagined. I could never imagine I would. What? Have a very blessed Christmas. Thank you for having me.